ladies and gentlemen, welcome to it.
Good morning to the folks. What up to the youngins and bless up to the world.
And then Tay just put your info on blast like that.
It's what the people want to know, bro. My bad.
Nah, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to it. It is the Morning Shake with me, your host, Xavier Hendricks, and of course, my co-host, Mr. J. Paris. What's happening, my brother?
What's happening, bros? Good morning to the folks. What up to the youngins and bless up to the world. What a beautiful Monday morning it is right here in Johannesburg, South Africa, bro. I'm thrilled, honored, excited to be here this morning. What's up?
The only challenge is, man, we're starting this morning with a little bit of a heavy topic.
Yeah, bro, for a Monday morning it is, bro.
For a Monday morning, it's definitely heavy, and we've been... for the past couple of Mondays, we've been having these like serious conversations, right? But I think it's one that needs to be held. I think it's one that needs to be had. It's a conversation that is relevant to what's happening in our culture.
Facts,
it's a conversation that's very one-sided and very lopsided. And there's reasons for why it's one-sided like that, but we're going to get into that as we obviously get into it. But before we get there, I want to introduce our other co-host also, you know, from the Wednesday warm-up. And, of course, she is a regular on the show. We cross-pollinate shows like that anyway because we're all from the same home anyway, with the same family, the same studio, the same everything. So we have these conversations in and amongst ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome our other guest today. We're still waiting for our other one, but you know how that one comes. You already know that story. But he's gonna come later on. But ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome Leandra.
Whoa. Hello everybody.
Yes,
I am Leandra and I'm the only woman on the show today. So
You need more women.
Do you think okay, also it depends on how you define woman. Let's start off there. But
Top heavy.
But I'm the first woman. I am the only woman in studio today. So yeah, you need me here. Let me just say that. I am needed. I am very much needed in this conversation. But thank you so much, Xavier, for entrusting me to come and have this conversation with you guys. We always have these conversations. We speak about it all the time. And people will probably ask the question, why do we care so much? And we will surely get to that as to why we care so much. But it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in. If you haven't done so already, I'm somewhat taking over. Please subscribe, and do share this. Please do share this. I think that it is valuable information. And also, please get involved in the comment section down below. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts? Whether you agree with us or disagree with us, we are open to having constructive and mature discourse here this morning.
I like the way you actually say that. Constructive and matured discourse. Please don't come here with your tendencies. Let's just talk.
Woke mob.
Don't come here with your woke mob mentality. Let's have the conversation. Let's be open-minded about it, and let's talk. So, ladies and gentlemen, obviously you can see the conversation today is going to be the woke culture conversation, and of course this conversation that is very, very, very diverse. What's the word? It's not diverse. Divisive is the word I'm looking for. It's very, very divisive. It's a conversation that oftentimes gets us into these difficult topics because a lot of people have their feelings about it, and that's exactly the problem because we're basing things on feelings here. But that's the conversation we're about to have. Listen, so we're in a climate where, as I said earlier, the conversation is very, very lopsided, and the reason for that is simply because there's no real representative from the other side of the aisle, and when there is, that side of the aisle quickly gets shut down, quickly gets called a bigot, quickly gets called a homophobe, quickly gets called every name in the book, misogynistic or whatever,
sexist,
whichever name,
anti-feminist.
Exactly. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on and on. So what that does is it actually makes the conversation lopsided. What that does is it almost has this bully mentality of if you disagree with me, we're taking down your video. If you disagree with me, we are canceling you. If you disagree with me, we are we're gonna allow you to lose your job. If you and I can't help but think of what happened to Dave Chappelle. The second he made some sort of comment towards the LGBT community, they came for his neck, right? They came for his job. They came for they literally came for it. So the ideology out there is that And we're just gonna call a spade a spade. I'm not gonna dance around the topic
No.
because we're here now and we're gonna get into it. The ideology out there is that the LGBT community is marginalized. The ideology out there, or the propaganda being pushed, is that it's a community that doesn't have a say, that can't choose what they want to do, that da 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 da, and on and on the list goes. That's the ideology, and that's the aim and the kind of objective that community wants to kind of push. The reality is somewhat different. The reality is that community can choose what they want to be. The reality is that community has the backing of big corporates, right? They've recently claimed to be that June month is Pride Month. And we saw big corporates like McDonald's backing that community. We saw big corporates changing their logos, making everything rainbows. We saw massive corporates backing that community. So the view and the ideology that is trying to be perpetuated and the reality of that ideology is somewhat disconnecting, right? And so the reality is that in the event that a Christian, which I am, I don't want to speak for anyone else, I want to speak for myself, a Christian, which I am, that believes in the Judeo-Christian worldview, that believes in biblical worldview, if I do come and I lift my hand and I say, hold on, there's an element there that I may disagree with, right? According to my Bible, this is considered to be a sin. According to my Bible, this lifestyle choice is considered to be frowned upon. According to my Bible, it actually says that in the lake of fire, homosexuality will find themselves in the lake of fire. That's according to my Bible, right? So again, we're facing off two elements here. The element is what the woke mob is perpetuating, and the element here is what the reality of the matter is. So they're perpetuating, we don't have choice, we don't have this, we don't have that. This is why we're fighting so hard. The reality is you do have choice. You have the backing of major corporates. You have the backing of Netflix. All the movies are perpetuating your narrative. Yeah. So the reality is, if myself as a Christian opposes anything or says anything against the narrative you're perpetuating, my video gets taken down, I get cancelled, I lose my job, I get flagged on social media. That's the reality.
Yeah.
So there's a clear disconnect on what the
expectations versus reality.
Yeah, of what the perpetuation of the narrative being kind of forced upon us, and the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground that there are people who disagree but are afraid they're going to lose their jobs. There are people who disagree but are afraid they're going to be deleted off the internet. There are people who disagree but are afraid they're going to lose opportunities. There are people who disagree and who've disagreed publicly and have lost their jobs. Yeah. Who've disagreed publicly and their businesses have been shut down. So there's a disconnect. What the woke mob is perpetuating or want us to believe and the reality of the matter is not aligning.
Exactly.
Your thoughts?
Okay. Jay, do you want to go for thoughts first?
I can go for Lee.
Okay, so yes, everything that you said is 100% true. But the thing is, you are right. There is a complete disconnect between reality versus expectations, right? And I think that, like I always mention, I say that these movements, because they are genuinely, and I always try to come from this perspective, that they are indeed people, obviously, like you were saying, and I'm of the same viewpoint. So let me just say what my viewpoint is. I also come from a Judeo-Christian worldview. So my interactions on social issues, cultural issues, religious issues, moral issues, psychological issues, emotional issues, like the whole shebang, financial issues, it's going to be from a Christian Judeo worldview, because that is where that's my pretext, right? And so everything from there is how I interact with the world. But I do understand that there is a history, like I said on our show last week when Blaine was on the show and we were talking about his debacle and his controversy that he had when he was talking about patriarchy, and people came bashing him and saying that he is a bigot and he's misogynistic and he is sexist and all those things. And I was saying that you cannot take away from the fact that history does show that, for instance, like marginalized groups like women who were previously disadvantaged, the LGBT community members from, let's say LGBT, right? I'm not going to go on with the rest of the alphabet. LGBT people were previously marginalized and so forth, because that is a stark reality, and there are people who get killed for it. There are people who have lost their jobs merely because they are women or because they're from this community. But that does not take away from the reality that we are currently in, and this is the reality that we are speaking about currently. That is no longer the case. Like you were saying, you have big corporations backing you. There has been affirmative action in terms of women taking leadership roles, having higher positions, according to the work that they put in, right? And I feel that you should get remunerated according to your qualifications,
regardless of your gender, regardless of
exactly. So on that ground, I'm of the stance that fair is fair. So you need to be fair in that regard. But what is not fair for me is exactly what you're talking about, is this bully mentality. It's the fact that everywhere you turn, this narrative needs to be shoved down your throat. And it's a narrative that's oftentimes based on untruths or half-truths. And a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that. You know, most people are and they say that it's difficult to stand on this side because there's so much opposition, which is not the truth. It's actually difficult to stand on the position that I and you stand on. Because I don't know where the other gents stand on, but on the side that you and I stand on the side to say that, look, the truth of the matter is that according to our worldview, this is a sin. The things that you are doing is wrong. It's not truth. It's half-truths. It's deception. Those kinds of things. And if you stand on this side, you run a greater risk of losing out. Your career gets brought into question. You know, they could end it for you once and for all, because who has the monopoly? It's the people that agree with that narrative. So if you say anything that is in opposition to that, they are going to come for you. So we are speaking now, when we are speaking on this topic, and I just feel like I need to say this at the onset, is that when we are speaking on this topic, we are speaking from the current reality. We are not talking about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where in the communities, especially like for instance in the rural areas, if you do identify as LGBT, or if you are a woman, you know what I'm saying, that
but 10 years ago this wasn't even.
Now that's the thing. That's the thing. Now. So the current reality,
I'm going to use a word that is now seemed to be derogatory, but like if you saw a guy that acts a little bit girlish, they used to call him a morphy.
Yeah.
And they used to be like, one morphy in the area, I know some morphy. You know,
yeah.
That was the talk, you know. I think they used it, they actually spoke about that last week also. So I'm using the word for the sake of for in the context of the conversation. I'm not using it in derogatory term. But that was what happened about 15, 20 years ago. Now the tables have turned.
So exactly. So that's what I'm saying. We are speaking about current reality, right?
Yeah, I think, broski, and I also come from a Judeo-Christian worldview, just by the way, because but for me, broski, I think I'm not so against, you know, what they're pushing. Yes, we have our views on it. I think I'm against the fact that if you telling us that we wrong, that's what I'm against. Because you can't be telling us that we're wrong in certain what we believe and so forth on, and expect us to just be okay and happy with it. So that's my thing. If you want to push what you push what you push, but push it in your corner and so forth on.
Yeah.
They'll now come into our camp and oppose what we believe. So I think this conversation and the debates and everything comes literally from that, broski, where it's like they jumping into our camp and literally
wanting to force you to
believe
go with
that
narrative.
So that's where I basically have beef with broski.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do have our fourth contender.
Yo, there's another in the fire.
Weighing in.
There's a fourth man in the studio.
40 kilograms.
35.
Jason, what's happening, my brother?
I'm good at you, bro.
Lekker, bro. You jumped into a hectic topic here, my bro.
Yo, I felt the atmosphere when I walked in.
You jumped into a hectic topic.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, if you're watching online, please do jump into the comment section and share your views. Because I feel like people are scared to share. People are like, you just now they cancel me. and that's part of the problem. That's exactly part of the problem. It's like, so okay, right now we must just kind of shut up and like, if I say something, you know the story. All right, bro, your thoughts? We just starting the topic.
Yeah,
before we
no.
get into something hectic.
My thoughts on the whole situation is I hear what everyone's saying and I agree with it as well. The fact that you literally you forcing people to use your pronouns and your this and that. And I was listening to something this morning that you sent me, and he literally said, how's this even going to work? Because if you open up room for one thing, you just have to continue opening up more doors and more doors. Because if I must now address an audience of 1,000 people, and I must use your pronouns, and you get offended at the pronouns I'm using, which is he, she, and they, you're getting upset. And I'm addressing a room of 1,000 people.
I can't
individually say Z, he, she, D, A, B, they, them, all that stuff. So it gets to a point where it's like, yeah, everything you are saying, but in the greater context of things, where does it fit in? How is it going to work? It doesn't make sense necessarily when you put it in the whole English context and addressing a room and all that. Because it says someone is going to take offense at the end of the day with whatever I say. And the other thing is, because I'm giving you important information at this point in time, but you're not taking that information in because I'm mentioning he and she, and I'm not saying because I offended you from 100% from the onset. I offended you. Now you're taking it in the way of why must I listen to this guy? He's not addressing me because he didn't use they them.
It's so true. That is so true.
She and she.
Here's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
Here's the $1 million question. So we're reviewing the movie What is a Woman, right?
Yeah.
And so in the movie What is a Woman, many different conversations are being held, right? And many different elements are being held. And the $1 million question is why this is so destructive to our humanity to push this narrative. And it is destructive to humanity. And I have the answer to that. I'm going to answer it close to the end of the show of why it is so destructive and why the agenda is so vindictive and so evil, actually, is what it is. And why God frowns upon it, because it is destructive to a generation and to humanity. But we're having that conversation. So let's just start off the conversation with the movie and the review of the movie. What is a Woman? So What is a Woman is a movie produced by the Daily Wire, and it is obviously put together by a man named Matt Walsh, and he puts together this movie, and he goes into pursuit of finding the answer to the question that 10 years ago was very, very simple, and now all of a sudden we have all these different, it's just a melting pot of whoever wants to throw their idea into the pot, just bring your idea. Look here, if you feel like you are a horse, come throw it into the pot. There's literally an interview he does with a woman or man, or I don't know what the person identifies. I don't know anymore even what the heck's going on. But that identifies as a wolf, right? And he's having a trans wolf. And he's having this conversation with a wolf. And so it's to the point where, bruh, whatever you feel like you want to be, bruh, come throw it in the pot and we're just gonna roll with it. And the reality of the matter is, and I'm a big fan of Ravi Zacharias, and I watch and I'm a fan of his work, and he actually explains why it's so problematic to have this kind of free for all, we do whatever we want of mindset.
We all unique, made in the image of I don't know who now.
Yeah, now it's all over the place. But
you are what you say you are.
So he's interviewing a wolf, right? And the problem that I have,
a trans wolf, don't get it twisted.
A trans wolf, right? And the problem that I have with this narrative that's being driven is the fact that, number one, it's not based on truth. It's based on feelings and emotion. So it can, and they literally admit to it. It's like, can do what I feel like
Because
doing.
that's what gender is now.
Yeah,
Gender's a
it's
feeling.
gender is a feeling. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not based on fact. It's not based on truth. It's not based on biology. It's not based on reality.
Yeah.
It's based on feeling. And we all know what feelings do. Feelings can change and shift depending on your mood, depending on something that happens, depending on whatever the case may be. So from a Christian worldview, I know that it has nothing to do with feelings. It has everything to do with spirit. So it's a
Yeah.
very spiritual thing. Don't even get it twisted, right? But here's my problem, or here's my thought on the what is a woman. When Matt Walsh goes out and has this conversation with various people, he asks them simple questions. And he asks a lot of people listen to this. When he asks people from the LGBTQ plus community, they can't answer his questions. When he asks people from a traditional worldview, they answer the question like simply. They just say, no, this.
There's no second guessing.
That's it. They don't try and dance around the question. They don't try and push into a different direction. They don't try and make it about They just answer the question. He even goes as far as goes to Africa and he goes and asks people there. And
Beside tribe
even
in
they just answer the
Kenya.
question. They just like, oh, this. Oh, what about this? That. What about this? No, that doesn't exist. What about this? No, that. Like simply. But when he asks that community, they dance around the question. They get offended. They cancel the interview early. It's like my problem with that community is when they backed into a corner, they either want to end the interview, they want to get up, they want to walk away, or they want to add another letter to the alphabet that now covers the loophole that you've now just discovered. It's like, okay, right here, we're short here, now we need to add another letter here to cover that loophole. That's why there's a plus and a long list of letters, which, by the way, they don't even know what they
And I
mean.
think there's a number now, so I did.
Can you see? Which they don't even... I watched the LGBTQ summit,
Two-spirited.
and the guy even asked, does everyone know what these letters mean? And none of them knew what those letters meant. None of them in that room. I'll show you that video. And none of them knew what the letters meant. And then they're like, oh, that's why we're having the summit. Let me explain to you what these letters. So it's like I'm perpetuating and standing for something that's, number one, not based on fact and truth. And number two, I don't even know what it means. Then number three, I'm so lost in this thing. I just feel a sense of belonging in this community, and that's why I'm here. But I don't even know what I'm perpetuating. I don't know what I'm standing for. And there's key elements in there that actually describes where a lot of these ideologies come from, and it's from a sadistic place that you have no idea. But anyway, thoughts. I had my rant now.
Okay. So, it's just to give context, and then if you want to go and watch it, you can get it on the Daily Wire. You obviously need to subscribe to a membership, but it's worth the watch, right? So it's whatisawoman.com. If you want to watch it, I would highly suggest you that you do so. So just to give context to what it is, the documentary features like Xavier was saying, and Matt Walsh is a conservative podcaster. He's also a children's book author. He's a well-renowned speaker, so he goes to different universities. And he's an American, right? Features Walsh asking what is a woman and related questions to a variety of people. So he goes from state to state. He goes to different states around America, and he goes to the Maasai tribe in Kenya as well to go and ask them the question. Because a lot of the people say that these ideas of just having two genders, it's very archaic. Actually, if you go to some of these ancient tribes and stuff like that, you will find that gender is fluid in those tribes. So it's like, okay, let me go try a different tribes and let me not just ask Americans. And that's why I think he goes there. And it's also, I guess, to prove a point. So he asks a pediatrician, a gender-affirming family and marriage therapist, a transgender opponent of medical transitions for minors, a surgeon who specializes in sex reassignment surgery, who's also a trans woman. That was a funny story. And a psychologist, Jordan Peterson. Welsh also discusses the term non-binary and transgender with a Maasai, like I said, tribe in Kenya, and interviewed a gay man who was nude in public in San Francisco. I was laughing at the fact that this man is standing there naked and having a conversation with him. Oh my gosh. But anyway,
funny, bro. He's standing there naked, like butt naked.
The documentary discusses sex reassignment surgery and transgender athletes in women's sport. So, first and foremost, like you were saying, he goes to not necessarily people from the LGBTQI plus community. He goes to people from the woke extreme leftist community, and he asks them the question. So he goes to the streets. He's in New York, he's in LA, he's in different states, right? He's in San Francisco, and he goes and he asks the question. He goes to a woman's march. He asks the question, "What is a woman?"
No one can answer.
That's what happened. He asks at a woman's march. He asks the question, "What is a woman?" None of the women can answer him. One lady screams to him, "If you're not here for woman, leave." He says, "What is that?" They don't want to engage in conversation because it's like Xavier said, when you realize that, this thing is actually not, it's flaky. When you realize when you in your mind, you do the calculations, you know that meme where there's a calculator, you're like, actually there's a flaw in this. There's so many fallacies in my ideology that now I need to start adding, and I cannot answer. What do you do? I mean, like for instance, when you are losing an argument, okay, let's say you were young and you were immature. We don't do that anymore, okay?
Yeah, we said
No, they still do it.
Yeah, I'm saying
Well, we're supposed to not do it.
I'm saying we. I'm
if
not
you're
talking
wrong
about.
if you're wrong in a
others.
conversation and you realize it's checkmate,
You admit to it.
checkmate, bro.
You
You
admit
realize,
to it.
I shook it
But
right now.
listen,
I didn't see that.
So, what we are supposed to do as matured adults, right, with at least an intellectual capacity to be able to do so, with the frontal lobe at least being fully developed by the age of 23 for most of us. I don't know. There's some people who was 53 who still, I'm not too sure. But anyway, that's a story for another day, right? I don't want to be age phobic. So the thing is, at 23 years
Let
old, your
someone
frontal
take some
lobe is
feeds.
supposed to be fully developed according to science, right? And so we're supposed to be able to engage in conversations. Like Xavier said, if you're having an argument with your better half, your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever the case may be, the one that walks away and that doesn't want to engage anymore, for me, that person is quite immature, because it's like, oh, you pushed me now into a corner. Unless it's now disrespect, like the person's just being disrespectful towards you, then you can say, okay, this conversation is over, I'm moving on. But if it's just a normal, conservative, mature,
Logical
conversation, and you walk away by a certain question, it shows me that you lost the conversation. You lost the argument.
You don't want to
right?
concede.
You don't
now,
want to. You don't want to go on. And in many of the cases of the left's ideology, those people just walked away when he's asking basic questions. He mentions to the one college professor who specializes in sex and gender theory and studies and stuff like that. It's basically his area of expertise. If anyone should be able to answer the question, it should be him.
Because he doesn't ask random people. He asks like top tier people.
He
asks professors and
he
advocates.
basically runs around the question. No.
Nah, bro.
No.
I didn't watch it as
Spoiler alert.
Nah, bro, you didn't
Spoiler
get it.
alert. He does not get an answer from any of them. From any of these. Like
They
Xavier
just
said.
take offense.
Yeah.
And end the
But
interview
they
and
can't-
walk away.
yeah, they end the
In
interview
this
and-
situation now with the college professor, spoiler alert once again, for the college professor, this college professor is going around in circles. He's like stuck in a maze. He's going around in circles, beating around the bush, not directly answering anything, right? Like you notice what our politicians do. And then all of a sudden, Matt asks him like about truth. Yeah, this man gets
He takes
angry.
offense.
Bruh, that was the most telling thing.
He
When he
says-
says, I'm just searching for the truth. Then
I
he says,
don't like
you
that
can't say truth.
condescending language.
Truth is offensive.
I don't like that condescending language.
That sounds
Matt asks him-
scriptural. That sounds biblical.
Matt asks
when
him
you
the
get
question.
offended by truth.
Matt says to him, okay, but aren't you supposed to, as a college professor, aren't you supposed to advocate for
the
truth? He's like, yes. You just got offended for the man using the word truth, but in your own admission, hypocritically, you say that it's your role to speak the truth. These people are delusional. They are completely delusional, and it's clear. You see, the cracks are beginning to show. That's the truth. The cracks are beginning to show, And that's the reason why you're going to notice now there's going to be more upheaval, there's going to be more protests. And it's so funny that it's during Pride Month that all these fallacies are being exposed.
And there's gonna be
The
more
irony.
letters
The
added and more numbers
irony.
added, because every time they realize, ish, we checkmate here. Let's add another letter. Let's add another number. Now let's shift the conversation to a different thing now, because we were now caught, excuse the pun, with our pants down in this area of the conversation. So let's shift it. Which brings us to the next topic. I don't know, does someone still want to jump on it?
I think Jess wanted to get in the topic.
Yeah, jump in there, bro. Jump in.
Is that the what you call it, the trans wolf part of the
the
woman?
Documentary.
Yeah, bro.
The film.
He even says, can you make like a wolf?
Yeah,
And she gets narrow. She's like,
Gets
"Hi,
Yeah, that's
going."
I don't feel comfortable.
where does-
but she's
where does-
doing
where
it.
does she
She's
say-
doing it on a public platform like TikTok and stuff. It's a trans.
Bro,
where does she or where does the trans wolf say the trans wolf is from?
she says it from watching
Anime.
Yeah, she watched the anime and she saw a wolf on the screen and she fell in love with the wolf, and she says she felt like she connected and communicated
To the
with
anime
the wolf.
wolf.
Bro, you know how bad
An
it's
anime.
getting to the point where the children
Guys,
where the
guys,
children are identifying as cats at school,
school.
and the teacher can't tell the child no.
It's on there as well, where he literally says school is literally becoming a zoo now, where you have kids just mooing and meowing and
When the teacher
woofing
asks them a question, it's typical avoidance theory.
And the teacher can't.
The teacher
and if
can't
the
do
teacher
anything.
says this child is acting like a cat, then the teacher can get locked up, lose their job, whatever.
Sure.
Bruh, how did we get here, bruh? How did we get here?
No,
Niggas
I
are
don't-
cats.
For me, I feel like if you wanna do your thing, do your thing, but don't impose your thing on young kids and
Innocent.
innocent kids. And again, it's contradicting, because if I say do your thing, but then again, your thing is affecting those
The
that's
thing,
trying to
yeah.
do proper things. Like if you look now in the sports arena, in the sports world, it's just women that's been trying to do their best in track and field and in all that type of stuff. But now you have a guy that became a female and that joins this track and field event. Now all of a sudden you coming last in it, you no more first. All of a sudden
You're
you're
losing
losing scholarships based on this. And you say, yeah, but why does it affect you? And that's what Matt also says in the documentary. It affects him because he sees the people that's putting in the hard work and that's trying the utmost best, but yet coming out second last. Why?
Yeah.
Because there's a gent that now says he's a female and he's volunteering. Well, not volunteering, but he's in this particular event. And now I was first the whole time, but now I'm so second.
And now
And
you
this
lose the
is
scholarship,
my
you lose-
scholarship you're playing with here, because now that gent is getting the scholarship, but it's a gent running with females. Obviously, he's gonna outrun all of them.
And then there's even one where the gent identifies as a woman, and he goes into the woman's locker room,
Yeah.
where the women are like naked and changing, and he didn't do the gender reassignment surgery. So he goes in there, bro, with his whole entire things showing all over the place. And so the women go to the reception and they say, but now,
You can't allow
what's
this.
going on here, man? So can't come into our locker room. No, there's nothing we can do because this O says he identifies as a woman and he's a sex offender, right? 6 times
Yeah, it
6
was a
counts of sex offense.
of sex offense to women. So my question at the end, and this is the question that Ravi Zacharias answers so beautifully, right? If anyone's watching, go on Google after the show, go onto YouTube and say Ravi Zacharias versus LGBT or whatever. He answers this question beautifully, bro. Because the question is, where does it end?
Yeah.
We can't just have a free for all and there's no rules and there's no guidelines and there's nothing. Have you ever watched the movie The Purge?
Yeah.
Where they say that now there's no rules and no.
Just go for
We can't live like that, bruh. It's like there's no law, there's no rules, there's no nothing. You can just freestyle however you want, and that's what the woke culture is perpetuating and fighting for. Like, it's my choice, it's my whatever I want to do, I can do. Whether it's moral or immoral, whether you believe it or not, I want to do what I want to do.
And like you
and
said,
that's where the problem lies.
it's so flawed to the point where no, they say we're fighting for equality and we want rights and it's equality and what. But what happens to the equality of that girl that's in the track and field that's coming second?
But that's what I
now?
said to you.
That equality just goes out of the
Exactly.
window. You're fighting for something, but
Equality
at
at
the
whose
same
expense?
100%. At the expense of those that's been working hard. Now you just literally, because you couldn't do it, because it was proven fact, you couldn't do it by the men's races.
Yes.
Now when you come to the women's races, all
Now
of a
you're winning
sudden
the
you're
girls.
winning. So it's equality for who then?
And you see that argument, because a lot of the times people would say that they would use the term bigotry and stuff. It's their first defense. It's their first counter argument. They go straight for the bigotry, the hate, the homophobia. That's their first and only argument that they go to. And they say that because you people lack empathy. Now that's the thing that I ask. Empathy at whose expense? Because is empathy also not a two-way street? So if you are saying that you are not empathetic towards this trans athlete that is now competing, a man competing in women's sports, he doesn't have to even go for the reassignment surgery. Yes, he can be on certain hormone blockers or whatever the case may be. But if he's fully developed into puberty, he's already developed those hormones and stuff
His
like that.
lungs
That
are
makes him
automatically
bigger.
His bone structure
Physiologically and biologically, everything is more, whether you like it or not. Look, you can now argue it as much as you want, and you can say it's patriarchy, and you can say that it's sexist and whatever. The fact of the matter is, naturally, scientifically, biologically, that is not going to change. It's just how we were created.
2 weeks
you
ago-
can now try what you want to do. It's not going to change.
2 weeks ago, we had a female bodybuilder on the show. And I asked her that question purposely.
Yeah.
I asked her, is there a difference? She said,
Sure.
whichever way you want to cut it, there's a massive difference, bro.
Like she
A
even,
massive
she even
difference.
says if it comes to a point where she's been training all her life, you can go to the gym, Xavier, as much as you are, and you can also put in that hard work, like the
And
same
I-
hard work.
and I'll pass
You'll
her.
outlive her any.
And she
any
said
time.
that
And
can
she
happen
said
in a
it can-
couple of months.
Yeah, she said.
What she worked years for, you can achieve in a couple of months.
And that's just the fact.
Just
That's it.
because of the way your genetic structure is set up.
So
and
here's
for-
my... go for
Sorry.
it.
For me, the other contradicting thing with the whole situation is when it comes to gender and sex and all this thing, they say, yes, it's a feeling and all that. You can't base it on if you have a, I don't know, can I say?
Yeah, you can
If you
say.
have a vagina or a penis, it's based off that. If they say, no, you can't base sex off that, gender off that if you have a vagina or a penis. But then why are you going for, if you're a man, why are you going for a reassignment? If it's not this whole big thing of vagina and a penis, why are you going to get a vagina or why are you going to get a penis then? If it's not based on this. If
And,
you're saying-
and over 80% of those surgeries are botched also, which is information they don't like to share
Yeah.
because it goes against
But
the
that's
narrative.
on the
According to that guy,
doc
it
as
says
well.
there's a 67%
67%
chance of it being a
Botched.
failure.
So
67%
they stitch the penis
chance.
on but doesn't ever work.
67% chance. And you are imposing this on pre-pubertic children. Children. You tell me that is not sadistic.
Bruh, it's at the point where a dad in Canada got locked up
Yeah.
Because he didn't
because
agree
he
with
didn't
it.
agree with them putting his child
14
on.
year old.
But do you know there's
Puberty blockers.
He's 13
there's
year old.
there's like a whisper in the trees that the big pharmaceutical companies are paying
Yes.
some of the parents to advocate for this thing. Like that mother that took the child there. There is now evidence starting to show that she got money from the South. In fact, that Planned Parenthood conversation, they said it plain down. They said, we get instructed to tell the woman when they come in here, not do the abortion. We get told to tell them that. We don't get told to stand for their rights. We don't get told to listen to the story. We get told, look here, if you want your money, you better make sure this
And
woman
there's
goes through
no
with it.
post-abortion therapy. Contrary to popular belief, like how many advocates for this, for pro-choice is advocating for, there is no post-abortion therapy or psychological help for these women.
Wait, now we're going into the abortion topic. But before we get there, I want to speak about the Buzz Lightyear topic.
Yeah.
And before we get there, let's just check the comments real quick, what the people are saying there.
Are you here for the comments? But once again,
It's your show.
thank you so bless up, broski. Appreciate that. Thank you so much once again to everyone for joining us. Juan on what's happening, broski. Good morning, my fellow South Africans. Yes, sir. Annalise, hola, hola, hola. They should stop forcing it on people. And then we got Al Pacino stalls. Looking forward to today's topic. Kimon Naidu. Good morning, guys. So excited to join you. Thanks for the show. Veronique, it's so disappointing that these women don't even know what woman is.
Alright, so let's get over. Thanks everyone for dropping into the comment section. But keep going with the comments. We're definitely seeing them. It's just that when we finish the thought, we'll then go through the comments. But here's the issue, right? So we got the Buzz Lightyear movie, and this is the problem. What Satan is trying to do is trying to get them younger and younger and younger and younger. Listen, this is the aim of what the devil. Let's zoom into my face. Listen to what the devil's trying to do. The devil hates. The devil hates God's creation, right? So everything that he tries to perpetuate is to stop the procreation of what God has made, right? It's to stop population, it's to stop. That's why 2 men can't have a kid, 2 women can't have a kid. When you go for a botched surgery, the chances that it's going to work diminishes drastically, right? So he is looking for every opportunity to try and kill human beings, right? And so the younger he can do it, the better. That's why they end up coming to a place where they do this thing where they legalize abortion, because they say, if we can kill this child before the child. What happens when Jesus was born? What's the decree that goes out? Go and kill every firstborn child. What happens when Moses is born? The decree that goes out, go and kill every firstborn child. Boy child. So what Satan tries to do, and that's why they started becoming smart for the in the civil rights movement. They started seeing, oh, this is the narrative. Go into the black communities, go and pump them with drugs, go and pump them with guns, go and pump so they can kill each other and they can shoot each other and this and that, and then go and purposely go and look for black men so that you can imprison them, right? And so that over 70% in the 70s, 90% of men were in their homes being fathers in their homes. 90% of black men were in their homes being fathers. In the late 80s to 90s, when they brought in prison reform, when they brought in drugs in the community, when they started bringing in this, it was a strategic move to remove the father from the home. Hence, men are trash. Hence, woman activism. Hence, all this. The aim and the plot from the enemy is strategic, and if you're not spirit-filled, you're not going to see it. That's why this conversation cannot be held with people who don't share the Christian worldview, because they just simply won't see it. But if you understand the spiritual aspect behind it, you're going to begin to realize, oh, this is what the plan of the enemy is. Break the family structure. There can be 2 fathers. There can't be 2 fathers, because that child is going to get to a place where he's going to start asking, who's my mother? How can 2 men have a child? Where's my mother? That child is going to... No, there can be 2 mothers. That child is going to get to a place when he's a teenager and he's confused and he's trying to make sense of his life and he's trying to make sense of his world, and he's going to say, but where's my father? Who's my father? Does anybody know what's going on here? And now what you do is you just regenerate a whole new generation of a child that is completely, the psychological effect on that child, the damage on the psyche of that child is almost irreversible. So this notion that you perpetuate is so flawed. It is so flawed. It's unbelievably flawed. To the point where when we have these conversations, you're not even going to be able to back up your facts because it's flawed. It's just simply flawed. So what's Satan trying to do? Let's get it as young as possible. Disney's meeting leaks 2-3 months ago where they blatantly say, the Disney executives say, we are purposely trying to perpetuate a narrative to get these kids as young as we can. It leaked. Where they admit they are trying to force this thing on children. They admit it. Then that woman even says, it's not so secret anymore. So we're just going to push the agenda. It's so clear. It's clear as day. So I can't understand why people still feel the need to debate it. When they blatantly saying it's an agenda we're trying to shove down your throat, like whether you like it or not.
You know what was so interesting for me reading the reviews on the Lightyear? So I just want to tell you that I was looking at the reviews, obviously from a film critic perspective, and not just like because of that element. I wanted to see why people, because a lot of people who are LGBTQI plus allies also didn't like the film, apart from the fact that there was a lesbian kissing scene for a couple of seconds. But anyway, um, Disney rated it was so badly rated. I mean, in comparison, Matt Welsh's film got 8.2 out of 10 rating, right? The Lightyear film got 5.3 out of 10. And Toy Story is a franchise that you know is big. It's one of Disney's biggest, right? And so I was reading some of the comments and some movie critics and what they were saying. And at the expense of good quality children's animation, Disney chose to push a political agenda. And unfortunately or fortunately for them, it backfired. And it just goes to show that's the reason why a lot of people were saying, look, I don't care what you want to do. Look, I don't care if, representation is what you want to do. But the fact of the matter is then at least give us a good storyline. Because now, just because you forced to add these characters in there, you literally, the entire premise, the world of the story, which is certain film jargon that people use, the world of the story, the plot line, everything just was completely mekaar because you forced to push a political agenda. And so one person said, and I think this person gave them 1 out of 5 rating, right? And in fact that the majority, if you go and you search Lightyear now and you search Lightyear ratings, you will see that most people gave them a 1. Like for the first time in Toy Story. That's Rotten Tomatoes, that's IMDb. It's a couple of rating agencies that rated this where people are like, this was a bad movie. So this one person says Disney IP grappling itself and patting itself on the back for it is almost like a bad joke. Yeah, I get it. The animation is good, right? How could it not be? Disney has bought just about all of their real competition get clowned on Sony Pictures Animation. They've made movies with sublime animation, with sublime animation, but lackluster everything else before, glaring at Toy Story 4. Of course, the animation will be good, but that's like calling a bird unique just for flying. I honestly don't care how good the animation is from Disney anymore. It barely phases me, and I'm always grounded by the lack of quality in the other aspects of the movie. Call me homophobic, call me a racist, I don't care. I know you are wrong. I enjoyed Encanto and Turning Red and many other Disney movies that got flack for being socially progressive. The socially progressive aspect isn't why I hate this movie. I hate this movie because it took a character I grew up with, cashed in on it as much as they can, made him effectively the opposite of what he's supposed to be, gave us a horrible, barely passable plot, and outlasted its welcome. If you thought Buzz was disappointing in Toy Story 4, you'll be ready to throw your phone at whatever screen you're watching this on. Another mother said, the movie had a good plotline, also gave a 1-star rating, but took too long to get to the premise. The script was not well written and seemed more like an attempt at slapstick comedy confused with the typical serious Disney characters. It was awkward. There were some very excited plot setbacks with excellent sci-fi aspects. The supporting characters were balanced well with the themes of forgiving one's mistakes and working together. The Buzz Lightyear character requires that you dismiss the original, overly confident and naive Buzz of the 90s. Once you get used to him, you quite enjoy the character arc throughout the movie. The end gay scene was confusing and unnecessary, and simply a push to include homosexuality in children's culture. For those who haven't seen it, there is a character whose lesbian life family quickly plays out over many decades. A baby is born into this relationship, which of course required a male. This confused my 7-year-old and opened up the opportunity to explain why homosexuality goes against God's plan to become one with your spouse and create families. How being gay robs a couple of this miracle. So though I prefer immoral constructs not to be thrust upon my children, I quite appreciate the opportunity to show directly through cartoon characters why it is wrong.
So it's backfiring on them.
Facts.
So you push a political agenda.
Other than that kissing scene that I did some research about that canceled the entire movie. Is the entire thing about pushing that agenda?
No.
It's not a.
No.
But that's why people were
Specifically
saying
about
it's
that,
like you didn't even take the time to create a good storyline for that couple and to give those characters a real story arc is what they or a character arc like they
So it
would
was
call
just
it.
like, boom.
It was just like throwing it in there. In fact, it said that before this pushback when Florida banned that they had
They
a
actually
law.
had that scene out.
It was out. It wasn't in the movie. But because there was such heavy pushback from the woke culture because of that one bill, the family bill that was amended or that was abolished, they put it back in. So it was also not just a by the way. So even for the LGBTQI plus community, that would be a slap in my face. It was like, oh, just by the way, let us not just throw it back in there.
Can I add another slap in your face just to show, if just to carry on writing on that narrative, is that they took it out for Arabic countries, right? That just blatantly opposes the LGBT, which I believe that Christians should get to that point also where we decide what we stand on and just stand on it and not be scared, because I think too many Christians are trying to play to toe both lines. It's like, I'm gonna be woke because I don't want to be cancelled, but I'm also gonna be Christian because I don't want to go to hell. It's like, man, choose your struggle and
Stick to it.
ride or die, bruh. Let's
Yeah.
stick that. Yeah, we putting ourselves on the line on a public platform, saying straight what we believe. Whether you're now gonna cancel us, whether you're gonna come for us in the comment section, whether you're gonna unflag this video, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We choosing, and there's more not, I don't use the word pride, but there's more. What's the word that I'm looking for? Help me here. Valor
Valor, bro.
in choosing a side and
Yeah, that's the word. There's more.
Valor.
there's more resolute valor, or whichever word I'm looking for, to choose a side and stand for it.
Onomatopoeia.
Consistency.
Consistency.
It's more brave
Yeah.
and not coward.
It's less cowardice.
Yeah.
To choose a side, and it's more like brave, like you say, to choose a side and ride with it, bruh. Don't try to flip flop because popular culture is now saying, because look how popular culture flip flops, bruh. Popular culture flip flops like you can't believe. If there's another narrative that comes now, then they change the story.
run with it.
Look what happened with Covey. Cohen.
Go on.
Look what happened with Cohen. You don't care about people's lives. You this and you that and blah blah blah. Changes. Actually, we don't need to do the test anymore. Actually, we don't need. Yeah, why are they trying to force us to wear masks? It's like, nah, man, choose a side and stick with it, man. Don't change when they change. And that's
Yeah,
cowardice.
exactly.
And what Disney did is cowardice. When we go to the Arabic countries, we're gonna take the scene out because we wanna benefit financially from that audience, because it's a big audience. When we
Yeah.
go to China, it's a massive audience.
Yeah.
When we go to India, it's a massive audience. So let's take the gay scene out. But when we stay here in America, where we pro this and pro that and the activists and all this, we're gonna keep the scene in. It's like, hi, gents,
Even you guys are flaky.
choose a side and stick to it, bruh. Decide what you wanna go with and go with it, because that's what Disney did. They removed the scene for certain audiences and they put it back for other audiences. So it's almost like, I'm going where the money is. So the question then comes: are you then really
No,
concerned
that's the
about
thing. They're not.
the narrative,
I can
or are you
answer
just
that.
going
They're
for the
not.
money?
They're going for the money. Big corporations do that. They pry on people's emotions for the money.
Nah, bruh. Here's the other question. Can you just take us real quick, just to get back to, I know the conversation's going all over, but it's still the same point. To get back to what is a woman, there's two people that get it. Well, there's one woman that he specifically interviews, right?
Yeah.
That give us the origins of
Where it started.
Transgenderism.
of where transgenderism started. And ladies and gentlemen, if I were you, I would question, if you're riding for this thing so hard and you're going out there on TikTok and you're fighting this thing so hard, if I were you, I'd do a little bit less being lazy and actually go and see where this thing comes from, because you're pushing a narrative that you have no idea where it came from. Can you just share for us briefly where in fact this narrative actually stems from and how in fact it came to be?
Okay. So I'm going to read this article, right, so that I can give context. There's 3 specific fathers of transgenderism is what they would basically say. The founding fathers of the transgender movement,
So it's not
right?
4 fathers,
It's the founding
the
fathers.
3 fathers.
It's not the 4
Right.
fathers, it's the 3
So listen, right, this article is found on thepublicdiscourse.com. And this is what we found out, and this is what the film says.
That's shocking.
The transgender movement began as the brainchild of 3 men who shared a common bond. And this is the common bond. All 3 were pedophilia activists. The story starts with the infamous Dr. Alfred Kinsey, a biologist and sexologist whose legacy endures today. Kinsey believed that all sex acts were legitimate, including pedophilia, bestiality, sadomasochism, incest, adultery, prostitution, and group sex. He authorized despicable experiments on infants and toddlers to gather information to justify his view that children of any age enjoyed having sex. Kinsey advocated the normalization of pedophilia and lobbied against laws that would protect innocent children and punish sexual predators. Transsexualism was added to Kinsey's repertoire when he was presented with the case of an effeminate boy who wanted to become a girl. Kinsey consulted an acquaintance of his, an endocrinologist by the name of Dr. Harry Benjamin, the second one. Right? Second father.
The second father.
Transvestites, who are men who dressed as women, were well known back then. Kinsey and Benjamin saw this as an opportunity to change a transvestite physically, way beyond dress and makeup. Kinsey and Benjamin became professional collaborators in the first case of what Benjamin would later call transsexualism. Benjamin asked several psychiatric doctors to evaluate the boy for possible surgical procedures to feminize his appearance. They couldn't come to a consensus on the appropriateness of feminizing surgery. That didn't stop Benjamin. On his own, he began offering female hormone therapy to the boy. The boy went to Germany for partial surgery, but Benjamin lost all contact with him, making any long-term follow-up impossible. So he didn't even follow up further on his first case to have any...
So he doesn't know if it was botched, he doesn't know if it went south, he doesn't know nothing.
Now, the third co-founder of today's transgender movement was psychologist Dr. John Money, a dedicated disciple of Kinsey and a member of a transsexual research team headed by Benjamin. Money's first transgender case came in 1967 when he was asked by a Canadian couple, the Reimers, to repair a botched circumcision on their 2-year-old son David. Without any medical justification, Money launched into an experiment to make a name for himself and advance his theories about gender no matter what the consequences to the child. Money told the distraught parents that the best way to assure David's happiness was to surgically change his genitalia from male to female and raise him as a girl. As many parents do, the Reimers followed their doctor's orders and David was replaced with Brenda. Money assured the parents that Brenda would adapt to being a girl and that she would never know the difference. He told them that they should keep it a secret, so they did, at least for a while. Activist doctors like Dr. Money always look brilliant at first, especially if they control the information that the media report. Money played a skilled game of catch me if you can, reporting the success of the boy's gender change to the medical and scientific community and building his reputation as a leading expert in the emerging field of gender change. It would only be decades later that the truth was revealed. In reality, David Reimer's adaptation to being a girl was completely different from the glowing reports concocted by Money for journal articles. By age 12, David was severely depressed and refused to return to see Money. In desperation, his parents broke their secrecy and told him the truth of the gender reassignment. At age 14, David chose to undo the gender change and live as a boy. In 2000, at the age of 35, David and his twin brother, who was raised as a boy because he didn't undergo the circumcision because they were saying that the machinery was damaged. And so David was the first one to undergo the surgery. And when they saw that it was...
his whole thing off.
They burnt his entire genitalia off, and then his brother didn't do it. So his brother grew up as a boy and he as a girl. Him and his twin brother finally exposed the sexual abuse Dr. Money had inflicted on them in the privacy of his office. The boys told how Dr. Money took naked photos of them when they were just 7 years old. But pictures were not enough for Money. The pedophilic doctor also forced the boys to engage in incestuous sexual activities with each other. The consequences of Money's abuse were tragic for both boys. In 2003, only 3 years after going public about their tortured past, David's twin brother
On the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Yeah. David's twin brother Brian died from a self-inflicted overdose. A short while later, David also committed suicide. Money had finally been exposed as a fraud, but that didn't help the grieving parents whose twin boys were now dead. The exposure of Money's fraudulent research results and tendencies came too late for people suffering from gender issues too. Using surgery had already become well established by then, and no one cared that one of its founders was discredited, and unfortunately, it still continues today.
Can I please have a moment of peace?
So, you have these kind of conversations and you bring these facts to the foreground. And
they'll find
you
a
are
way to discredit
transphobic,
those
you are
facts.
homophobic, you are a bigot. How is this bigotry, my question, when we are talking about the complete derailing of an innocent's life? How is this bigotry? You tell me. Based on the facts. Based on these facts. And then you want to say it's 1 out of a million cases. No, it's not 1 out of a million
Probably
cases.
majority of these cases with those children.
Because research shows that post-reassignment surgery, the depression rates and suicidal rates are higher than pre.
It's over 80%.
But let's not talk about that because that's
it's majority
bigotry.
of the cases, yeah, where people actually... And there's one woman that says in the documentary where she actually says that we don't yet know the full effect of what this thing is going to become in the next 10, 20 years, when those people realize their bodies are messed up, when they're suffering from depression, when they're going through all these untidiness. Because in reality, it's not natural. In reality, it's not how God intended for it to be. In reality, it's not normal. If it was normal, guys, please can you stop perpetuating this thing that it's normal and it's natural. If it was normal, why do parents cry the way they do when they find out the child is gay or the child is lesbian? Why do parents feel the way they do? Because naturally, when your child is born, it's supposed to be a happy feeling. It's supposed to be a feeling of joy and elation. It's supposed to be something you're excited about. Why do parents turn the way? Not even, it doesn't have to be a Christian parent, because I know that argument's going to be, because the world frowns upon it, so now you think that's how it should be and blah, blah, blah. No, why does it cause so much devastation? Why does it cause so much pain? Why does it cause so much hurt? Why does it have so many negative side effects after the fact? If indeed it was natural, why do you have to block natural hormones? Why do you have to intervene with medical intervention? Why do you have to... If it's so natural, why do we have to work so hard to cover it up when it goes wrong? Why do we have to push the narrative so deeply, shove it down people's throats? If it's so natural, why do you have to fight so hard to force it upon society? You know why? Because it's not natural.
You know, it was interesting for me to see last week when Blaine was on the show, the pushback, and I said to Jess, I went to go read the comments, and there was, I was speaking, I said to Blaine, when I checked in the comments of the videos of people that were basically ousting him because of his stand and because of his views on patriarchy in relationships and stuff, most people weren't even commenting on what he said. They were commenting on the use of the word female.
But that comes back to what I said in the beginning of the show. you're going to offend someone if you're not addressing them by there, but you're not even listening to the content
To the
itself.
content, exactly. So they were upset. So
No, but
already they cut him off by the
They don't
word
care about
female.
the content.
Female, that is an age-old term that was used to describe biological sex of people who have reproductive organs and people who have female genitalia, which is breast and a vagina. That is a female. You're getting upset by the use of the term female, not even by what was being said, not even about the way that he spoke down towards women or the vulgar language. That was not what you had a problem with. Not the fact that he swore at you and he called you a female dog, which is the derogatory term. You okay with him calling you the derogatory term for a female dog, but you upset with him calling you female. Where are we going to as a society is my question.
But here's the
Where everything that is natural and normal, you want to pervert and you want to make that unnatural and evil.
The problem is the people who are from the woke culture is not interested in the validity of the conversation and the reality of the conversation. They're more interested in being a victim. It's this victim mentality of where can I find something to take offense about, and how can I just take offense about something so I can get nar and throw my toys out of the court. And because, you know why? Because a victim is being celebrated in our culture. It's a matter if I now say, yeah, look what they did to me, blah, 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 then I'm going to have a mob standing behind me saying, yeah, it is. Yeah, look, yeah, that. And it validates my feelings and it validates me as who I am. Makes me feel better about myself. And so now I'm a part of something, of society that validates who I am. So now I'm coming for you because I have a backup. I don't care about the content. I don't care about, and if you back me into a corner, I just get off the set and walk away. Or I just call you bigot, or I just call you homophobe, and just call you racist, and just walk away.
Dr. Jordan Peterson says in the film that you get masculine women and you get feminine men. Why do you want to now change them to become the opposite gender because of certain tendencies that they have? Since when you see that your child is showing signs of, Xavier, you see that your daughter wants to play with a truck or whatever, she must be a boy. She must be confused about the gender. Since when did it come to that?
Since when did we leave it up to a 5-year-old to decide?
Even goes on to ask,
Yeah.
do you have kids? He says, yeah. Does a 5-year-old believe in Father Christmas? Yes. So obviously, if a 5-year-old is believing Father Christmas, is Father Christmas real? She says no. Then he says,
no, she's like, to that child.
yeah, to that child it is. But he
Discrimination
says, but is it
goes on.
real?
Yeah.
He says, no, it's not real. You can't have a 5-year-old decide
Santa
at
Claus.
that.
Not Father Christmas.
Oh,
bro.
Santa Claus. You can't have a 5-year-old decide what he or she wants to be at that age. If they're thinking Santa Claus is real, it's like, come on.
But
now.
then when he continues to probe and she realizes that she's talking herself
Then
into a corner, then she changes the angle of approach now.
I mean,
It's
she's a pediatrician, right? And she does therapy, conversion therapy with kids who show signs of gender dysphoria, which is a thing. It's a mental
and it's always
shortcoming.
been a mental
It's
issue.
always-
They've
it's a
recently
mental
removed
illness,
it from the
right?
from
Gender
that book.
dysphoria, which ultimately is now coined transgenderism, right? But when he asks her about the drug Lupron, and he says to her that this is a drug that is used to chemically castrate sex offenders, and you are giving these to
small children.
prepubescent boys to castrate them. She says, she was the whole time very, very nice and answering his questions with a smile on her face. All of a sudden, when he asks that, she's supposed to be a medical doctor, a pediatrician. She says, I think this conversation is over. Why? Why can't you continue in discourse with us? Why, if there was nothing wrong with it and you've got some medical standpoint, why don't you tell us about it? You are the doctor. You are the professional. Why are you walking off?
Because she's realized it's checkmate and she has no other moves to play. So
The
easiest way is
the
walk off.
senator who approved a bill to allow transgenderism and gender neutral toilets could not answer one question. This is a senator who allowed that bill to be passed. Could not answer. That girl, I'm not too sure what he's.
Looks like it was a woman.
Probably a
That whole interview is,
transgender man himself. He could not answer. He was like a deer caught in headlights. Simple questions. As what is a woman? Matt asks him, what is a woman? He says, this interview's over. He takes off the stuff. His assistant says, Matt says, I just want to know what is a woman.
She says,
and you will not find out today.
They obviously don't have a brand Bible.
Now, okay, so let's.
I mean, if you are advocating for this, at least know what it is.
I think let's end the conversation and let's just call a spade a spade. There is only a man and there is only a woman. No matter how you wanna try to bring your feelings and emotions into it and try to dance around the topic and all of this.
0.27% of intersex people, but that also you have to choose at birth.
Again, that's what Matt says. He says if a child is born with one arm, it doesn't mean everyone must have one arm. It means there's something wrong.
Yeah.
It means something went wrong in either the development stages, something when the parent ate something, or there's a deficiency in the blood or immune system or whatever. It doesn't mean it's normal.
And you do studies to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future.
Exactly. You find out what was it. The mother ate fish and the fish had alkaline in it or whatever, and it caused the child to, have whatever. That's why when you're pregnant, don't eat raw fish. Don't eat sushi. Don't drink alcohol because it has this and this and this and this. So it doesn't make it normal. It means something went wrong.
Yeah.
So I think let's just end this by saying that I think where the challenge is that this whole community, and I always say this to you, is a house of cards that is going to collapse upon itself because it contradicts itself whichever way you look at it. Because when one side of the community is saying there's no such thing as male and female, it automatically nullifies and erases the T in LGBT. Because the T says, I was a male and I transitioned into a female.
Yeah.
So if you're saying there is no male or female, then why did the guy with the penis go and cut it off and make a vagina? Why did the woman with the vagina go and stitch on a penis? Because the whole aim of that was to say that I'm a girl and I'm trapped in a man's body or a boy's body. So, by your own confession, you are saying that there is a difference between a male and a female. So then, when that gets questioned, now let's add another letter, Q. What does Q mean? Q means that I can be whoever I want. But isn't that the same as bi? No, it's not. And then they have some way of trying to justify it.
Okay, then you add pansexual, then you add asexual.
And then you have to add I, because I is for this. And then it's like, guys, wait, where are we going with this? And so that for me is the fundamental issue. Why do we...
Is demisexual then not bisexual?
You see, so it just gets all over the place. Why do we as Christians care so much? Woo! Allow me to tell you this before we call it a day. The reason we as Christians care so much is because it is a sin. Because biblically it is wrong. Because if I see that you are about to jump off a bridge and as a fellow human being I walk past, it's my duty and my responsibility to stop and say to you, try to talk you off the edge, literally like the word says, try to speak you off the edge, to try and go to you and say, hey, don't do this. This is what it's going to result into. This is where you're going to go if you continue living in this lifestyle. My duty and responsibility as a Christian is to share the good news with you, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's my responsibility, right? Whether you accept it or not, the ball is then in your court. So if you accept Jesus as Lord and personal Savior, you receive something called the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit will come and abide inside of you, live inside of you, and the Holy Spirit will do something called conviction. So conviction will then say to you, hold on. The lifestyle that I'm living is contradicting the word of God, and it's contradicting the spirit that now lives inside of me. And that conviction will push you into making a decision of whether you should go on with this or not. Would you have proclivities towards the sinful nature? Yes. Would you? Any person will have proclivities towards a sinful nature.
Even married those man, who are engaged in other sexual immoralities.
A married man that biblically stating should be only have eyes for his wife because anything outside of that will also be considered a sin. That proclivity comes, but this is where the Holy Spirit brings something that is part of the gifts of the Spirit, which is called self-control.
Yeah.
And what self-control says is that I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. I want to act upon my feeling, but self-control says, God, help me not to act upon my feeling, right? It's the same way. If I walk into a store and I don't have money and I see a loaf of bread and I take that loaf of bread and I somehow put it under my jacket and I walk out of that store without being seen, technically, I didn't hurt anyone, because that's the argument. We're not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
Technically, I didn't hurt anyone. Technically, it was stolen from a major chain store like a Pick and Pay or a Checkers, which make billions per month. They're not going to know a loaf of bread. In fact, they throw the bread away when it gets moldy.
Yeah.
They're not going to know a loaf of bread disappeared off their shelves. So technically, you didn't hurt anyone. Technically, you didn't harm anyone in the process of your thievery. Technically, you didn't do anything wrong in your eyes. You didn't have the money. You were hungry. You can find a myriad of ways to justify your action. But the reality of the matter was, you have stolen something that didn't belong to you, which makes you a thief.
Yes.
So the fact of the matter is, whichever way you try to justify your action, whichever way you try to dance around your action, because the only way the community says, but we're not hurting anyone, why are you so worried? It doesn't matter how you try and dance around the point.
That article that I just read begs to differ with that.
Yes. It doesn't
Because
matter how you try and
being hurt by
people
it.
are being hurt.
Innocent
in the process,
people who don't have a voice for themselves
The
to speak.
fact of the matter is, as a Christian, my responsibility is to share the gospel with you. And if you don't want to, that's entirely up to you. And that's my monologue. And then you guys can share your closing remarks.
Okay, cheers.
No, you can start, Ellie.
Yeah, and I think for me, bro, the nice thing about these conversations is that we're not basing it off feelings and emotions like, you know, our certain people do. And we're basically speaking about the after effects that take place if you choose right, wrong, left, right. And that's dope. But again, be a independent thinker, stand for what's right, stand for truth. I like what Victoria Twala says here, the scripture that says, be sober and be vigilant because the devil is roaring like a lion. We cannot ignore that scripture and expect to win.
Yeah.
The devil is a failgoed.
Yes,
Yo, Ma.
man. Come on, Victoria.
Cheers.
For me, in closing, go and watch What is a Woman. It opens up your mind to a lot. It's like you watch it and you're like, yeah, but I didn't think of it this way. And the fact that Matt just asked simple questions, because, you know, it's someone that just finished high school, doesn't have a degree, doesn't have
He didn't go to
a
college.
doctorate, nothing, didn't go to college or anything. But it's someone that can just ask these simple questions, but yet these simple questions can't be answered. And if simple questions can't be answered, obviously there's a flaw in there somewhere. Something that things is not balancing so lekker. So ask these questions. Go and give it a watch. It's on the Daily Wire. Go give it a watch. And yeah, come back and let's have a conversation again. Eh?
Yeah, no. For me, always looking at these topics and watching the things play out, I've come up with this saying that total tolerance results in complete chaos. Because the thing is, the more you tolerate, the more you have to tolerate. So it's like Jesse said earlier, if you're going to just keep saying yes, yes, yes,
Just
yes,
keeps
yes,
widening
yes,
the
yes,
boundary.
that yes is going to come into your household. And that yes is going to cause complete chaos. Trust me on that. The more you allow, because remember, you can't want to, what is good for the goose must be good for the gander, right? So you can't want to say to the outside world, yes, fight for this, fight for abortion rights, fight for LGBT rights, fight for this. And then in your glass house, you are standing and your children are fine and your family is cool and everything is hunky-dory because those children grow up, those children get exposed to the very same thing that you tolerated. And when those children start acting out and they become defiant and they become delinquents, you want to question why. Remember what it is that you sowed in other people's lives that you didn't know. And that's what I want to say on that note. Thank you, Xavier, for having me.
Thank you so much. Guys, choose where you stand. Stand for it. Believe in it. Don't flip-flop. Don't change when you now see, I'm checkmate here. My boat is busy sinking. Decide where you want to be. I'm choosing Jesus. I'm choosing the side of truth. You can change the letters every time when that suits your narrative, and change your emotion and your feeling whenever it suits your narrative. Me, I'm choosing one way, and I'm going to stick to that way. Call me old school. Call me homophobic, call me bigoted. And we didn't even get into the topic of why you can't compare the racial element to the LGBT, because they like to make that argument also. Why you accept people for their race, but you don't accept people for their gender, whatever. That's a whole different conversation, which also has answers to it. But be that as it may, thank you so much for watching. It was a heavy one for a Monday morning. You make us pop here. We'll see the comments after we go, and hopefully this video stays up. For freedom of speech, you're so strong about freedom of speech and freedom of choice. Grant us our freedom of choice and freedom of speech as well. See you on the next one. Love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to it.
Good morning to the folks. What up to the youngins, and bless up to the world.
And then Jay just put your info on blast like that.
It's what the people want to know, bro. My bad.
Nah, bro.